Okay, here we are. Right. And so, Chad, you can start playing and we'll go to the first slide. First slide. First slide. No, that's the second slide. That's the third slide. That one. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, this tune goes out to all the people out in LA County, especially the city of San Pedro, where I hope to be this weekend checking out San Pedro Film Festival and a couple of my favorite bands at Music by the Sea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Said I'm going to Pedro City, here I come. Said I'm going to Pedro City, here I come. I hear they got some real crazy people there, and I'm gonna meet me some. I'm gonna be standing in the middle of Point Furman when they play. Said I'll be standing in the middle of Point Furman when they play. Listening to some real good music on a sunny Sunday. Said I'm going to Pedro City, here I come. Yeah, I'm going to Pedro City, here I come. Oh yeah, they got some real crazy women there. I'm gonna get me one. I might take a jet, I might take a boat. Whatever it takes, I'll make sure I go to Pedro City. Well, here they got some real crazy people there, and I'm gonna meet me some. Yeah, I'm going to Pedro City, here I come. Yeah, I'm going to Pedro, yo. Pedro City, here I come. Ah, yeah, they got a lot of crazy people there, and I'm gonna meet me some.
Thank you, Chad. That was wonderful. I've come to think of Chad Bishop as our John Baptiste.
Ah.
So welcome to the July 28th Armchair Artwalk Tour, Actors on Actors. And we have, in addition to Chad, we have two guests, Rachel Levy and Renee O Connor. I'm going to do a few announcements first, and then we'll get into the conversation. Can we go to slide 4? On August 4th, we'll have our in-person art walk, and the guided tour is leaving from Sirens, and we'll go to a couple places, and it'll probably end up at the Artistry. Also, if you're in town and you're go to the back of Sirens, next to the mural that we painted 3 years ago, is a brand new mural on that low retaining wall that was painted by Harmony Vasquez. And Harmony was the original artist in the workshop that painted the face of the siren. So we were really happy to employ an artist and get some more work done. We are also planning in the fall to start a new series live and on Zoom called Culture Talks. And if you're not already subscribed to our e-news, you can go to our website and sign up for that and find out the details once we've got all of those things settled. And also, you know, any donation to support our work is most appreciated, and you can also do that for the website. So next slide. Over the summer, in the last month or so, we got a couple grants, and we painted 5 more storm drains and a DOT box, and the DOT box is on 6th and Harbor. The storm drains are throughout the downtown core. So that makes a total of 7 storm drains and 25 DOT boxes plus a large scale mural. So I'm just gonna run that video now so you can see what they look like and how that happened. So Larson's going to set that up. Big props to Linnell Finley for helping us film the video. We worked with Linnell the last time we did an armchair and made the video about Karita, and we store all of these videos on our YouTube channel so that they can be seen later on. I was going to start with a question for everybody because I kind of wanted to have a different format here where we're all talking to each other. So, Mr. Bishop, who is your favorite actor and why? And then I'm going to ask Renee and Rachel to answer the same question. So you can unmute yourselves.
Hello. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My favorite actor. Good question. There's so many great ones out there, past and present. But I would say one of my favorites of all time was probably Chadwick Boseman. He played pretty much any role that I ever wanted to play, and he did a lot in a short amount of time and made such an impact. So I would say Mr. Boseman.
Why did he inspire you?
Well, he played Jackie Robinson, who I was inspired by. He played James Brown, who I was inspired by. And he also seemed to have a presence that he picked good roles, and he always seemed to bring something artistic, and he did something to push the craft forward. I don't think he just settled for roles. I never saw him do a lot of earlier. I don't know what he did earlier. He could have done a lot of small bit roles, but it seemed to be a lot of heavy impact roles, and he just had a certain presence that I liked.
Yeah, he was amazing. It's really sad that we lost him. So
Yeah.
Renee, who is your favorite actor and why?
First person who came to mind is Judy Dench, actually. And I remember the first time I was working on Midsummer Night's Dream, I was curious about her, her work, and I was just amazed at how youthful she was, but with this, talk about a stage presence, with a beautiful voice. And then recently, my husband actually met her, and he said that she was the most delightful person, and she was so interested in our family and our little theater company of House of Bards, and that Iris was playing Romeo and Juliet, and she was just so delightful. So I mean, they say be careful when you meet a hero. She was one of those people that apparently is a beacon of light.
Mm.
And a role model for graceful aging.
Yes.
So Miss Rachel, who's your favorite actor and why?
So I'm going to give you two different answers that are very, very different. My favorite Shakespearean actor is Mark Rylance. I have never heard anybody speak verse better than him. I was very fortunate to get to see him play Henry V in 1997 at the Globe in London. And again, it's just, as a side note, I'm going to nerd out here for just a second. The mark of a really good Shakespearean actor when you understand everything coming out of their mouth, because they know where to put the emphasis on things. And he is clear as a bell. He is the best verse speaker I've ever heard in my life. So, and I actually waited afterwards to talk to him, and he was so gracious, and he was just a very nice human being about it. So that's answer one. That's my my more cultured response. And then then my response number two is Madeline Khan. I want to be her when I grow up. She passed away way too early, and she is brilliant. I think the source of most of my sense of humor comes from watching Mel Brooks films, and her in particular. That's who I want to be when I grow up. She was brilliant.
Was brilliant. Great choices. So Renee and Rachel, I want to understand a little bit about your origin stories and how you know each other. So we'll go, while you're here, Rachel, let's start with you. What was your family life like? When did you know that you wanted to be an actor? Or were you always that kid in the back of the class where the teacher had to say, okay, that's enough?
Actually, both of those things are true. I'm pretty sure I came out of the womb performing, so I think I don't have a shy bone in my body. And what's interesting about my family in particular is that my mother, who's very introverted and very shy, went to the High School of Music and Art in New York, which is what Fame was based on. Now, based on the movie that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, it is not like that. Apparently, people just don't break out into song and dance in the cafeteria, which much to my disappointment. But she studied performance, and the arts are very, very, very important to both of my parents. And to go to music and art, you have to choose two instruments. So the two instruments that she had was voice and piano. So I grew up in a house where art was just part of the DNA, meaning that there was singing and dancing and music, and we watched musicals, and we watched obviously Mel Brooks films, and lowbrow and highbrow things. So that was just part of who I was. So when I was in first grade, we did a play, and it was a combined play between the first and second grades, and it was Annie, and everybody was required to go up and sing 4 bars of Tomorrow, which of course all kids at that age knew, because it was a very, very popular movie that had just come out. And so I didn't think anything of it. I went up and I sang my 4 bars, and I sat down, and then they sent us out to recess. And of course, everything is political. And I remember a second grader saying, well, they have to give Annie to a second grader. They just have to. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't have an opinion. I didn't have like the acting bug, but it didn't bother me. So we come back in and they start handing out parts, and I wasn't getting a part. And again, it didn't bother me at all. And at the very end, and they said, and now we'd like to say that Annie's going to be played by Rachel, which was very controversial. And so I started acting before I knew fear. I started performing in front of people before I knew fear, and I just never stopped. And what's funny is my first grade teacher is actually my friend on Facebook. And I told her that story, and she was floored that these little things that happen when you're very little have such a big effect. I just started performing because they cast me, and I never stopped. So that's my origin story.
Oh, somehow I'm not surprised. And Renee, did you come from a household that encouraged the arts? And when did you know you wanted to be an actor? And as a lot of you know, Renee was Gabrielle on Xena the Warrior Princess, and so she's our local celebrity.
Well, I had the exact opposite background, Rachel. We didn't have any art in our home. There was no music, there was no theater, movies and stuff like that. And I was extremely introverted to the point where I would just be terrified all the time. So when, yes. So what's interesting is I found the little theater on wheels coming through the church community in Texas. I grew up outside of Houston. And I asked my mom, I was like, can I do this? Can I do that? And she would always say, yeah, sure, if you want to. And so she let me join. And it was Alice in Wonderland. And I played the caterpillar, and I was about, I think, 10 or 11. And so I didn't make light of it. I said, come watch the little show. But I had built my own costume out of like these chimney little filters for the little creepy crawly parts. Anyway, basically that was it. I am still, very introverted and very, very private, but that was it. That was just an interesting moment where I could feel that there was more to life than that fear and the feeling of terror, And so that was it for me. I basically then fortunately had my mother as an advocate that just let me take classes, and I did go to performing arts high school for 2 years, which really helped to sort of shape my desire to try to pursue this for a living, because I did find a part of myself that was so free in the acting experience, and that's how I started.
So Rachel and Renee, what was your first job, a professional job?
My first professional job was actually it was a commercial. I was about 16 years old, and then I ended up in a film at 17 years old. So I asked my mom if I could be emancipated 15, so I could start working. And so I started really young, but yeah.
And I don't think I know, actually, because I think I did my first real solid play when I played a townsboy in Oklahoma. So I was like 9. So thanks. I passed as a boy. Townsboy. Yeah. Well, as in theater, it's real hard to get boys to come in. So yeah, I was a townsboy. We have photographs somewhere of that. So I think maybe 9.
Both of you are involved with Little Fish Theater, which is our equity seat waiver house here in San Pedro, and one of those great resources. And they just celebrated their
25th, I think.
25th anniversary. And so were you in any shows together, and how did you, wow.
I know.
We've been ships passing in the night, actually. Yeah, I was going to say that, Renee, you did Shakespeare by the Sea in 2002?
2004.
2004. Somehow I just missed you.
Yes.
So I did Shakespeare by the Sea for, I think, 8 years. So I started after Renee.
But you started you're one of the founding members of Little Fish Theater Company.
Yes. So one of the first productions they did was this thing called Ladies Not for Burning, which is a hilarious play, by the way, by Christopher Fry. about England and the scare over witchcraft and people burning witches. And I came in and I auditioned for the love interest, which was the young woman. And I got pulled aside and said, I know this isn't really in your age range, but would you read the mother? And it, by the way, the mother's the best part. So I was like, oh, ouch. Okay. So that's how I got started. And I think that was in 2002. I started with Ladies Not for Burning It, Little Fish. And then I got sucked into Shakespeare by the Sea later.
And Renee, how did you get started with Little Fish?
Well, actually, when I finished Shakespeare by the Sea, I remember Suzanne talking about, and Patrick Best talking about starting Little Fish, or had just started the process. And I don't know how I ended up volunteering, but I volunteered to create the landscaping in the garden area in front of the theater of the building. I know.
Nothing to do with acting.
Nothing to do with acting. And I'm like, I think I could do this. And so my mom came up from Austin, Texas, and we bought some plants and we put it all together. And then, oh no, it's my little contribution. And I remember years later, I drove by and it was all gone. And I said, Lisa, what happened? She said, actually, it was probably the worst choice I could have picked, because it created like this jungle area where you couldn't get through to the entranceway. So anyway, I was just a huge fan of the arts in San Pedro from the early years, and I just wanted to sort of be a part of it. And anyway, later on, I ended up acting in some of the productions.
Well, we're glad you both did. When Rachel and Renee, when you're preparing for a role, how do you? I think that folks are really interested in your process, and because it not only helps us understand you as an actor, but ourselves in terms of being better storytellers. So when you have a role to play, how did you prepare to be Gabrielle and Xena?
I had been in Los Angeles, coming out from Texas, for about 5 years already. And I'd been taking many classes and working, not necessarily in theater, although I did the theater more in Texas before I came to Los Angeles, but I just went to different studios and I tried to have tools. And so many of those tools I still use today. But I'll tell you something, that even though I was training as much as possible for about 5 years, I almost left. It was finally an agent dropped me, and then I went to a different company. And then after about a year, that agent just said, I think you need to find a new career. And at that point, you can get so lost in your head and in the system. And so I had a real talk with myself. It's like, what? I'm a very spiritual person. I basically kind of gave it up. I'm like, okay, if I'm supposed to be doing something else, let's go, let's do it. Give me till the end of the week and I'll pack up and go back to Texas. And I booked a job about 3 days later with I'm not as I wasn't like a sexy person. I was the one that wasn't pretty enough, tall enough, sexy enough, or anything. I booked this sort of comedic role as a young prostitute, which sounds ridiculous, but it was really funny. And it was directed by Betty Thomas, who was a phenomenal female director at the time. So little did I know that having that experience would basically give me just the confidence to know there's a bigger picture here, and just wait, your time will come. And so then I went on to Xena about maybe a year later. And anyway, going back to Xena, is that I basically have used everything that I've learned all the years on every episode. I try to use the role of Gabrielle as almost like a film school, where, like this episode, I'm going to practice Meisner. This episode, I'm going to practice, internalizing or whatever it is. But now I have a definite system that I use. And then I use it as a director as well, because I try to come at the same approach, hoping that actors will feel very free in their process when they're working with me as a director.
Oh, cool. Rachel had a similar story the other day at rehearsal about, I don't know how to characterize this. I'll let you say, Rachel, how what Hollywood does to women.
Yeah. So Renee clearly has had much greater success. So first of all, mad props to Renee for actually making it. So I can't say that of myself, but I will tell you, when I got to Hollywood, I was pretty tortured. So basically what I was told was, you're fat and ugly, but not fat and ugly enough to make you marketable. So we don't know what to do with you. It's not that you're not talented, but we can't market you. So sorry. And so, you get smacked down enough like that, you're like, fine. And so that's kind of, I retreated to theater. And so I've sort of had a renaissance since I hit 40, where I'm like, now that I'm older, people aren't trying to shoo me into, the attractive woman, which, thank you for trying to shove me in there, but that's not who I am. So being a character actor, the older I get, it's actually better. So I'm having more of a renaissance now, but I still mostly do theater stuff. But yeah, it is really amazing that as a woman, even if that's not what you're going for, that's how you keep getting shoved into that box. And that, aging in Hollywood is very difficult. And, I can't imagine the pressure of actually being a leading lady and aging in front of everyone in the press, and I mean, whatever the name of that movie that Emma Thompson just did, where she's naked and she's older and everybody's freaking out, like that should be the least of our
Grand,
problems.
yes. I found that movie to be real. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I found that movie to be very inspiring. That, she started as a very uptight character, and at the end, spoiler alert, she looks at herself naked in the mirror and then touches herself, and it was a big journey for her. And for me, it was very inspiring to see a woman that's my age and never had a perfect body. And yeah, I found that to be really wonderful.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, Emma Thompson comes from a background of like one of the truly great trained actors. She is not Hollywood's it girl. She never was. But I think about other actors who that seems to be the only thing that they were, was the pretty girl, and how hard that must be on them, having nothing to do with their talent or who they are as a person, because they keep getting shoved in that box, and that you become invisible as you age. You're irrelevant as you age because you're not the hot woman anymore. And I think that's really disappointing. So thankfully we have these moments like our Emma Thompson moments to remind us that this is an artifice, and this is something that is kind of shoved down our throats based on what people think we want to be. And it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy to say, this is the ideal. And then we go, oh, okay, I must want to be that. And it's because it's up here that it's the ideal, and it may not be actually what we want to be. So I think that's kind of interesting.
I agree with that. And so I'm going to lead into what your other side gigs is, Renee, since Azina and Rachel. So you do acting for Little Fish when in the before times, and you also created a business, Nutrition for Imperfect People.
Yeah. So again, I think I have been on a diet since I was probably about 14. Again, all those images, and then you get to Hollywood and then they're like, well, you're still fat. So thanks. So I struggled a lot with my body image and weight just in general. And then a few years ago, I was talking to my brother, who's a personal trainer, and I was complaining about the fact that I'm just always going to be overweight and there's nothing I can do. And he said, you should check out this thing that one of my clients is trying. It's this habits-based nutrition program. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I went and I looked at their website, and it was a year-long program. And it didn't really say what it was, which is a little terrifying. You're like, is this a cult? What's happening? But the before and after pictures of the people in it were so remarkable. And the reason why they were so remarkable is that people didn't look like sports models afterwards necessarily. They were all walks of life, all ages, but the difference between the before and the afters were so huge. And even the afters, where people still needed to lose weight to be in what's considered a healthy weight, the change between them, they were still in those after photos. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'll do it. And so I joined this program, and it wasn't difficult. It wasn't always comfortable, but it wasn't difficult. It's just these little habits that build on each other, and letting go of all of the diet culture and nonsense, and just letting go And it's a year-long program, and they don't do this anymore, but at the end of the year-long program, they had a transformation challenge. So they said, you know, the before and the afters, and we'll let the world vote on who we think has the most remarkable change. And so for men and women, so I won the women's grand champion for transformation. So I got jumped with a giant fake check, much to my surprise. And I realized that it had made such a big difference in my life that I wanted to get certified to help people find that same peace. So during the times of the pandemic, I became a precision nutrition level 1 and level 2 master coach, and I'm working on my certified personal trainer right now. So now I coach people basically to do what I did.
Oh, that's awesome. You were one of the people that I always look forward to when I knew they were going to be in a show at Little Fish, because you're always doing something interesting. And you can watch Rachel's little snippets of advice on her Facebook page, Rachel Levy.
Levy. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Renee, sorry, great, thank you. So Renee, other than having children, right?
No.
After Zena, what have you been up to?
You know, actually being a mother was the first part of everything I wanted to do after Xena, truly. So however, because I have to keep some sort of art going, since it is a sense of who I am to be happy, I did start a production company because I felt that it would give me an opportunity to work on short films or a web series at the time, which this is back in 2002. Any kind of project in different positions, such as an executive producer or a producer or a director or an actor, to give myself opportunities. And I have kept that going over the years. Again, it just had to fit into my lifestyle of being home and with my parent, my as a parent, you know. And so I have, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of different people. A lot of the films, the short films are projects I'm very passionate about. They would go to film festivals. One in particular that Dawn Higginbotham wrote and directed went to the Cannes Film Festival. And so I was fortunate to go with her and see it presented in the American Pavilion. And, you know, I just kind of follow my passion. You know, I look for opportunities where I have a lot of joy, and this wasn't always easy because I don't know, like after Zine, I was trying to figure out who I was. It's like, I'm not a sidekick anymore now. What do I do? You know? And that was such a huge part of it was all my 20s basically growing up. And so I had to figure out, well, now, do I have to believe what everyone tells me that I have to choose? I can be a mother, but then I can't act. You know, I can be an actor, but then I can't be a director. And I was so frustrated by everyone asking me to pick one or telling me to pick one and asking which one I needed it to be, that I just said, forget all that. And I started working with a teacher of mine, and her name is Mary Rocamora. And she has been an incredible gift in my life, looking at sort of giftedness as a concept. And so because of her, like almost 20 years later now, I have a lot more freedom in moving from one project to the other without a sense of compartmentalizing my life anymore.
And you started a company called House of Bards, and the first production was, pardon me, the Scottish play.
Yes. So while having a production company, I realized that, you know, it takes a lot of resources to put projects together. And I wanted something that was a little bit more immediate. So I went to start the House of Bards Theater Company, and we found it in 2019, and we put on the Scottish play. And then we basically shut down after COVID, going to shut down all theater. And I've held it on the side, waiting for our opportunity to come back. And we just did in April with Romeo and Juliet.
With your daughter Iris as Juliet, right?
That's right. Yes.
It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And do you have a show coming up in the fall?
We do. We're going to put on George Orwell's 1984 at the Grand Annex again in November.
Awesome. And Rachel, what do you have coming up in terms of what you're involved in? Excuse my voice, I just totally lost it.
That's okay. We are exciting people. I can see how that would happen. I know. So I'm going to be working with a company called Downtown Rep, and I worked with them a couple years ago, and then last year it's an immersive theater event. I don't even know how to describe it, but this one is based on. It's funny that we were talking about Ladies Not for Burning, the witchcraft accusations that happened in England this time. So so we are doing an immersive play about that, which is going to be held at, oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of it. It's near Dodger Stadium, and it is a historical museum about buildings. And I cannot think of it for the life of me, but it'll come to me in a moment when I'm not talking. And then we also go out to Altadena to a mausoleum there to perform in October. So it's very atmospheric, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really hard to describe, but the audience moves from area to area and they see different tracks of the story that somehow all intertwines. And I have no idea how they come up with it, but it is brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the three of you, do you have questions for each other?
Rachel, how did we talked a little bit about, how you get into that mindset where if you're listening to the chatter in your head, what event or what inspired you to change the head talk, the radio?
So I've thought about this a lot, because when you think about the number of times that any one of us have tried to do something, we have tried to change, and then we fail, right? For whatever reason, and we beat ourselves up. I think the difference is that I was ready to let go. I think our problem is that we are all really smart people, and we think we can figure it out on our own instead of letting somebody who actually has gone there before us to guide us. So whether that's the acting process, whether that's a really good agent that guides careers, mentors, teachers, when we let go and we get out of our own way and just focus on the things that actually have impact and recognize how that hits us, and letting go of old patterns and be willing to be brave enough to let go of old patterns and embrace change. Because I do not think people are able to change until the pain of their current status is greater than the fear of what they don't know is coming. So I think that's really the core of it. When you're ready, when you're absolutely ready to change, that's when something's going to happen. So when you're so tired of listening to that negative self-talk, and you're ready to face it and face the unknown of who would I be if I didn't have this mentality, if I don't think of myself as the overweight, disappointing person, right? Who would I be? And that's really big.
Yeah, it is really big. I often think of that Leonard Cohen quote that we have to stop being the hero of our own story, and that means like get out of your own way. And so, yeah, that it is really important. How about you, Renee?
Oh gosh. I fortunately studied with this woman, Mary Rocamora, and her work is all about looking at the ego and the patterning, and being willing to see it there. Are you there?
Yeah, I
Okay, yeah.
Because it sounded like there was a plane going over his house.
Basically the same idea, like, looking at recognizing the fact that we all have this sort of mind chatter, and that we are all, even though that is happening, to look at where are we willing to find new choices, and to be capable of living in that unknown place, even though it's uncomfortable. So all the same things, Rachel, that you just mentioned are the tools that I started to study and have been working on for, almost the last 20 years. So for me, it's just now a matter of living this way. And when I fall back into something that does feel like an ego reaction, to not sit in it anymore, to not shame myself because, maybe my emotions were, a little more spontaneous. And in this world that we live in now, we have a lot of that, right? Everyone's reacting to each other all the time. So I'm just trying to walk the talk that I've been working on, and at the same time, then use that mindset in my projects with people that I work with. So for me, it's a
I,
lifestyle.
I actually have a sort of corollary question on that, Renee. So, I mean, like, you're associated with being Gabrielle. How hard is that? And yet great is that you've had an impact on the world and that you have an iconic role, but you also do other things. How hard is that to deal with both the gift of the fact that you've got to play this role for multiple years and you're associated with it, but also the other things that you do, like Shakespeare, like being a director, like doing other acting projects where you're not Gabrielle?
You know, um, initially I found the objectification of challenging because it was a little overwhelming. But honestly, I just started to look at how am I like Gabrielle? You know, obviously I played her, but then what are the qualities that are similar? And then to really embrace that sense of wanting to connect with people in a loving, more open-hearted way. That's Gabrielle. That was me. It is me. And so then I sort of moved beyond that quality of being maybe stereotyped, which I never felt that way, but just the objectification, I'd say, and then moving beyond it. I just don't get trapped in it anymore, you know. And with the beautiful community of fans that the show has cultivated, I've moved beyond feeling nervous that I might disappoint them, you know, and get all the mind chatter, meaning that there's an icon in the LGBT community in Xena, you know, that I wanted to live up to, and I didn't want to disappoint them. So I was, I had to let all that go and just look to the real moments with fans, the fans who love the show, because um, in some cases, the show did save their life. You know, it helped them to come out to their family or to the community, and you know, you don't take that lightly. You just sort of are grateful for those, you know, those opportunities to meet other people who had that experience. So I don't feel like it's hard anymore. I just feel grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that in my own life too, that I'm sure all three of you do, is that, you know, when you can be in that attitude of gratitude, where you're grateful for the life that we have and the blessings that we have here, particularly where, you know, we're not in well, some people think it is, but we're not in a third world country, we're not hungry, we have a roof over our heads, and all of those small things that sometimes we get frustrated about, but we don't take those for granted when you're in that space of being grateful. So yeah, I'm with you on that. It's one of the things I think that got me through the pandemic was like thinking that we didn't have it as bad as other people did, and so yeah, attitude of gratitude is really really helpful. So I have one last question for all three of you. Where do you see yourself in? Maria said we're grateful for you too. Where do you see yourselves in 5 years? And what kind of challenges do you think that you're facing in the next 5 years? We'll start with you, Renee, and go to Chad, and then Rachel.
Yeah, I'd love to see House of Arts continue to grow, and just give other actors an opportunity to kind of fill a niche, which is like a medium-sized house, you know, at the Grand Annex. So, and then I'd love to work more in the television or film industry as a creator. And so that will bring a lot of challenges, yeah, no doubt. But again, if I can just keep moving the way I like to move and work with good-hearted people, then I'm not afraid of it. It's just another day.
And I think the work that you're doing with House of Bards and all of the young people that are involved with that, you're giving them not only acting experience but leadership skills. Because it's not just, you know, memorizing your lines and learning your blocking and showing up to do the show. It's team building. It's a whole lot of working with volunteers. It's a whole package that you know that we all go through to put on a show. So Rachel, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, I mean, kind of similarly to Renee, I would like to put more emphasis in film and television, and see where that leads. Now that I'm kind of past that age where I'm kind of forced to be what we were talking about before. So that would be nice. And also just expanding the reach of my coaching, because yeah, I mean, it really has become a second calling, meaning that I don't think I will ever stop being a performer. And now that I know what I know about health and how to let go of that nonsense, I really want to help other people get there and find that peace. And so, yeah, both things, honestly, 5 years, both things.
And Chad, you're well versed in the idea of having side gigs, right? And you started a new venture, right? In addition to playing live.
Yes, I've started a new venture called Over the Bridge Promotions. And much like Rachel and Renee, I'd like to kind of be a bridge or someone that could help new artists. Am I on? All right.
Yeah, you
Help,
are.
help younger artists or new artists, not necessarily young artists, um, make it a little bit easier for them to get work and to understand the business of building relationships with the powers that be. I'd also like to, in 5 years, go into film and TV, maybe do a little less performing and a little more writing, writing bits, comic bits, scripts, and music for film and TV, and possibly a little acting. I think I could play somebody's uncle or something.
Well, you have a
Somebody.
couple of good coaches here.
Oh yes, I'm going to definitely follow up on the theater aspect of what they're doing. I did a couple of productions. One with San Pedro. We did Pirates of Penzance just before the San Pedro Theater Club closed, maybe 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And I've done things throughout my lifetime. Now I'm not a theater kid, but I've been plucked to always to be the singer. So I'd like to stretch out a little bit and do some serious acting at some point.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Rachel and Renee. This has been a lovely conversation. Did you have any more questions for each other? Not to
Renee,
put you on the
when
spot.
are our actual ships going to bump into each other? That's the weird part, because it's been like 20 years of missing each other. So one of these days it's going to work out. I know it.
Yeah, I'm sure. What's so wonderful with House of Bards is I get to try to find projects that for people that I really want to work with. So hopefully it won't be that far away.
Yeah, or something at Little Fish, of course, right?
Yes.
I have a question for you too. When you're playing a known role, that's a classic and it's probably been played 1,000 times, do you look to other actors for tricks, or do you just take that on yourself? Meaning, do you look to other people who've played the similar role and try to weave things that they've done into what you do, or do you go at it with your own vision board? I guess that's the question. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, no, I'll hop in on that. So there's two different things that you kind of have the opportunity to do. So as far as iconic roles, I would say the only iconic roles that I've played were Shakespeare. And when you've seen a really great Shakespearean actor, and we're all honestly, to our core, all hacks. And if somebody did something in a great way, it kind of resonates in your head the way they said that line or whatever. So I would say that, I mean, at least there's a knowledge of it, but doing the work, at least in Shakespeare, again, there's a rhythm to it. And if you're not investigating the rhythm and that's the way you memorize it, then you're missing that. People won't understand you. So when you do the work, sometimes it's like the difference between the word content and content. It's spelled the same way. Those are two different words. So if you're not doing that work, but if you've heard somebody who's a great actor saying it, you might actually go, oh yeah, I like the way so-and-so did that. Therefore, I'm going to emulate that. But I wouldn't say that I personally ever try to mimic people, but I will, let's just say, gratefully steal or appreciates the way somebody else did something. However, there have been instances where I am playing someone who's famous. Like I did a play where I was Judy Garland. And so I did my best. I mean, I had a wig and I had the outfit, so I looked like her, but as Dorothy, to do her voice. And, I would practice to try the closest that I can with the tenor of my voice to do her voice. So, I mean, there are two different things. If you're actually playing the person, then yeah, you do the best you can to actually do all the mannerisms, all the mimics, all the things that you can. But if somebody's done it really well, I don't think it ever goes out of your head that, oh yeah, so-and-so did this role. I kind of feel this, but I'm not mimicking them.
Okay.
Renee?
Thank you.
Well, I know when when I was looking at the Scottish play with Judy Dench, I was more curious about it as a director. I find that that's where I start to look at other people's work, and not necessarily because I want to recreate it. I'm just curious about the interpretation. And so now when I think back, I remember more about the choices, the coloring, the just the characterization. So as a director, I guess I do a lot of work. I look into different ideas. And then as an actor, there aren't that many times that I get to play something where I get to see other people. So for film or television at all. And then for the Shakespeare, like Rachel said, you have to just do the actual text work first. So I start there. And then I try to actually challenge myself with archetype work now, so that I'm getting out of my comfort zone and trying to find aspects of the character that maybe I wouldn't jump to initially. So I go that direction at the moment.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. You guys are so inspiring, and it's for me personally, and I'm sure the audience feels this way too. It's wonderful to see people that are living their best life and living in their gifts, particularly women that, I admire all of you so much. And so I want to thank you for doing that and bringing us such joy and entertainment to San Pedro. And thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what's going to happen now is that Chad's going to play us out. Larson's going to run the last couple of slides where I thank everybody again. And we will see you probably in November for the next Armchair. So thank you all for being here. I'm so grateful for all of you. And we'll see you in life, I hope, soon.
Yeah. I could tell you some lies just to keep you satisfied. I put my heart on the line. Tell me, why did I try? Said that we would do better. I gave it all that I got. In return, you gave little when you should have been given a lot. But you take pieces of me until my heart's not where it's supposed to be. Take me up, take me down, and then you twist me around until you take all of me, all of me, all of me. I put my heart on the line. I did it too many times. 2 empty bottles of cheap wine, girl. You know I cried, yes I cried. Said that we would do better and talked about it before. Now we're back where we started when we could have had so much more, but you take pieces of me until my heart's not where it's supposed to be. Take me up, take me down, and then you twist me around until you take all of me, all of me, all of me. You Take all of me. Don't be a heartbreaker. People write sad songs like that about you.
That's original. Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So we've stopped recording and we're not live streaming anymore. That was fabulous.
Man,
Thank you all.
learned a
And
lot
thank you
here
all
today,
the guests
man.
for being here too. I mean, all the audience for being here too.
Thank you for the opportunity to sit here with these talented people and learn about the acting game. Yeah,
Well,
man.
thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah.
And there's incredible support to all the arts.
Oh, you guys make this so easy. I love doing this. And, you know, there's a certain amount of stress with trying to get it together, but you guys make it really easy. There is so much talent in this town. I have barely scratched the surface. And we did this every month from April in the pandemic. I think we did 17 of them. And then when we brought back the live art walk, we started doing this like once a quarter. So I could, you know, find people in Pedro for years that nobody knows about. So you're free to roam the planet and have some
Okay.
dinner, and maybe we can meet in life one of these days, Rachel, when you're down this way.
I'm in Long Beach, so you just let me know. I'll just truck across the bridge.
You're in
Okay.
Long Beach.
Yep.
Hey, I'm gonna have to invite you out. I'm part of the Long Beach Community Theater. We have a thing going on in mid-September. I'd like to invite you guys out if you're around.
Absolutely. Let me know.
Yeah, man. Cool. All right, I'm gonna eat.
Okay. Thank you, and see you all soon. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Larson. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
And don't forget to send me stuff when you do I forget the name of the play already. The House of Bards, next House of Bards show.
Ooh.
It was Mice and Men, and now you're doing what?
Now it's of 1984.
Oh, how appropriate. Oh, cool.
I know, right? So I switched it over
And that'll be in the fall.
in November.
Terrific.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.